Hi everyone, thank you for joining this breakout session. So this is breakout session 2. So this breakout session is going to be presented by Amal Tom. He's a research scholar at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology. Amal's interests include ELT, translation studies and linguistics. And today he's going to be presenting on learning by doing, cognitive implications of using experiential teaching strategies in young students with specific learning disabilities. Today, Amal's going to be looking at various models focused on the lexical and semantic processes involved in teaching and learning languages. And he'll be discussing experiential strategies and how these can help to develop language skills for those students with specific learning disabilities. So Amal, are you ready to start?
Yes, Leo, thank you for the introduction. A warm good morning and good afternoon to all the members present here. So I am a research scholar at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, and my area of interest is ELT. And I am working with my supervisor, Dr. Nagendra Kumar, who is my supervisor and also the co-author of this study. So now let's move to the paper. So the paper is titled Learning by Doing, Cognitive Implications of Using Experiential Teaching Strategies in Young Students with Specific Learning Disabilities. So William Chandler Bagley, an American psychologist, in his paper contends that despite the role that language plays in the mental life of an individual, it has not received any attention from psychologists. Recent collaborations among psychologists and linguists has led them to develop various models of language perception and learning in an attempt to understand and explain the intricate processes involved in language acquisition and learning. Some of these models of language acquisition and learning, including the dual root cascaded model, the easy reader model, the trace model of speech perception, are now used as foundations for various language teaching methods used in schools and colleges around the world. Dual root cascaded model was first described by Max Coltert et al. 2001. It shows how one-syllable words that are visually perceived are converted to phonemes. So as seen in the figure, it has 3 distinct roots: the lexical semantic, the lexical non-semantic, and the grapheme phoneme system. So DRC is a cascading model. That is, in each root, the higher levels affect and activate the lower levels without reaching a threshold. But this is called a dual-rooted cascaded model because in language perception, only 2 of these roots work. Those are the semantic system, the lexical semantic system, and the lexical non-semantic system. This is inherently flawed as it explains only the reading processes of an archetypal skilled reader. Easy reader model was described by Eric de Rachel et al. In 1999. It studies the various processes involved in reading and how various processes interact with each other to create the patterns of eye movement that are usually observed during reading process. This model works by assuming the initiation of the programming of the circuits to the next word before the reader understands and learns the meaning of the word that is being read. This creates a parallel system, unlike the DRC model, which is a cascaded model. But the DRC model does not explain and provide a deep understanding of the language processing and the reading process. It also fails to explain the huge number of higher level linguistic and semantic processing on the circuits and the eye movement control. Thus, The researchers argue that easy reader model is merely an explanation of what happens during reading when the linguistic processing is running smoothly and is not hindered by any external or internal factor. That is, it does not explain whenever a person is the reading processes of the person who has learning disabilities. Moving on, Tray's model of speech perception was first introduced by James McClellan and Jeffrey Ellman in their 1985 paper. So this model is based on interactive activation, where information is processed through a series of interactions, inhibitions, and excitations between a large number of units. So this is called the trace model because the large number of units in this model create a system called the trace, which serves the dual function of a perceptual processing mechanism and the system's working memory. Extending trace to a realistic level with a significant phoneme inventory and lexicon size could require almost 4 to 5 million units and about 80 billion connections. Trace model is unable to account for some of the recent experimental data, which also suggests that there is also a role for bottom-up inhibited processes in lexical access. This is why a trace model is also realistically flawed. So what are specific learning disorders? How does that connect to English language learning? A large number of students in schools and colleges all around the world show and exhibit a significant deficiency in learning languages. English language teachers and educators have rarely developed methods and practices to assist such language learners. The widest range of difficulties of neurodevelopmental origin. Yeah, so what is uh, specific learning disabilities? So these are the widest range of difficulties of neurodevelopmental origin that can have a potential effect on the process of learning an additional language. These specific learning disabilities can occur despite adequate cognitive skills, appropriate socioeconomical background, and high quality education. It is in the context of teaching such students that the importance of using experiential learning methods become clear. So, SLDs or specific learning disabilities are diagnosed when specific deficits are found in an individual that hamper his or her ability to perceive or process information for learning. It is difficult to pinpoint the exact reason as to why such disorders occur. Studies point to various factors, including biological, cognitive, behavioral, and environmental factors. Specific learning disabilities cause many cognitive issues that often affect the second language learning and acquisition process. So this is a model which I created with my professors, and this shows how the various internal and external factors can result in the creation, in the specific learning disabilities. So these specific learning disabilities can include dyslexia, ADHD, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, aphasia, and autism spectrum disorders. So of these, the language-based learning disabilities are caused because of an inability to recognize, distinguish, and use phonemes, morphemes, lexemes, and graphemes properly. So, experiential methods in teaching English. David I. called in his book, Experiential Learning, Experience as a Source of Learning and Development, examines a new new model of learning, which ensures that learners are directly in touch with the real world around them, allowing them to contribute to their intellectual development. Experiential strategies like art integrated learning, sport integrated learning, task-based language teaching, and jigsaw learning encourage language learners to explore themselves and their emotions to learn and acquire their language skills in English. As students engage with their experiences, English language learners learn to examine their experiences and develop a deep understanding of the language. These strategies improve and develop the cognitive and creative abilities of the students, allowing them to transcend the confines of the disciplines, making learning truly interdisciplinary and efficient. It also helps students become more open-minded and expressive. So how can you use experiential learning strategies in teaching students with specific learning disabilities? Traditional approaches to teaching, including the textual and the translation methods that are currently used in schools, are teacher-centered methods. The teacher teaches while the student listen as passive observers. But this approach creates competition in the classroom with students vying for attention from the teachers. For, for students with learning disorders, such an environment leads to extreme anxiety in the classrooms, often causing irreparable damage to their learning process. Experiential learning strategies flip the system, allowing learning to be cooperative and allow students to learn by constantly interacting with the environment and people around them. Experiential strategies allow teachers to create an anxiety-free learning environment where students learn and develop their skills and knowledge. Students with learning disabilities can learn effectively and successfully in an inclusive environment when teachers use methods that that give students opportunities to learn and work while being able to engage in art, music, and games. The most important feature of such inclusive experiential teaching or experiential classroom is seen in the way all learners actively involve themselves in the learning process, and none of the students seem either to be excluded or disengaged. This ensures that the students enjoy a good rapport with their teachers while learning in an reflective and multimodal learning environment. So for the study, the researchers conducted a survey, and the survey received responses from 60 teachers teaching English from two major Indian states. 30 responses came from teachers teaching in the state of Kerala, and the other 30 came from teachers teaching in the state of Uttar Pradesh. The teachers who participated in the survey teach in schools affiliated to the Central Board of Secondary Education, CBSE, India. Though the teachers belong to two very different regions of India, the responses were consistent with the aims and purposes of the study. As you can see, there are the two, this is the map of India, which shows the states of Uttar Pradesh in purple and Kerala in green. Uttar Pradesh is a North Indian state. The average literacy rate is 73.0%, which is less than the national average of 74.4%. The major language used here is Hindi. Kerala is a South Indian state with an average literacy rate of 93.91%, making it one of the most literate states in India. Malayalam is a major language which is used here. Secondly, this study focuses on Central Board of Secondary Education, or schools managed by the Central Board of Secondary Education, which is one of the three major boards in major school boards in India, with the other two being the Indian Council of Secondary Education, ICSE, and the state boards that are managed by the individual states. CBSE has a pan-India presence through its more than 24,000 affiliated schools spread all across the country, and also has approximately 240 schools in 26 countries across the world. As per the recommendations of National Education Policy 2019, CBSE has suggested implementing experiential learning and teaching strategies in all its schools. Thus, CBSE schools were chosen for the study. So, methodology. A survey was conducted among school teachers teaching English in various CBSE schools of Uttar Pradesh and Kerala. A questionnaire with 9 descriptive questions was therefore circulated among these teachers using Microsoft Teams. Around 60 teachers participated in the survey, and the responses were then thematically analyzed using QDA Minor Lite version 2.0.9. Codes like LSRW, technology in classrooms, holistic learning / learning outcome based learning were then assigned to each answer. The responses were manually entered into a software, and the frequency and the percentage of the occurrence of these codes were then analyzed. This analysis helped to identify certain themes in the responses by combining the relevant codes. So there were 5 major themes were found in the responses. For instance, in teaching methods in English, the codes we included the codes like LSRW, teaching LSRW, teaching SLDs, technology in classrooms, and blended teaching strategies were grouped under the theme teaching methods in English, while the codes including interactive learning activities, special or remedial care, and technology integrated learning were grouped under teaching SLDs. Likewise, the codes like difficulty in teaching constraints, inability to learn / lack of concentration, and curriculum constraints and issues were grouped under challenges in teaching SLDs, and the codes holistic teaching strategies and technology integrated learning were placed under experiential learning strategies in English. Finally, the codes including identifying limitations of SLDs, proper training for teachers, curriculum changes needed, and integration of technology were grouped under proposed rectifications. Figure 3 given below clearly shows the hierarchical division of themes and codes seen in the cases as analyzed using QDM MinerLite version 2.0.9. So here we can see there are 5 themes under which there are a few codes. So LSRW refers to the teaching methods that focus on developing the listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills in English. SLDs refer to students with specific learning disabilities. Discussion. So of the 9 questions, the teachers were first asked about the methods they usually use in their language teaching classes. The responses received were then given 4 codes. LSRW method, 32 times in 32 separate cases, or 53.3 of the total cases. Communicative and cooperative method was seen in 44 times in 44 responses, or 73.3 of the total cases. Technology in classrooms came up 14 times in 14 responses, that is in 23.3% of the cases. Blended teaching methods appears in 29 times in 28 responses, or in 46.7% of the responses. Next, the teachers were asked about the methods they use to teach students with learning disabilities. The responses were then given 3 different codes, of which interactive learning activities appears 21 times in 21 responses, or 35% of the total responses. Special or remedial care appears 44 times in 44 responses, or in almost 73.3% of the total responses. Technology integrated teaching appears 8 times in 8 cases, or in 13.3% of the cases. The third set of questions asks teachers to explain the various challenges they face when they teach students with learning disorders. The responses were then given 3 different codes. For instance, difficulty in teaching or time constraints appears 47 times in 42 cases, or in 70% of the total cases. Inability to learn or lack of concentration appears 29 times in 24 cases, or in 40% of the total cases. Curriculum restraints and issues appears 19 times in 19 cases, or 31.7% of the total cases. For the next set of questions, the respondents were asked if they believed whether experiential teaching strategies, and if they believe these strategies could be effective in teaching students English to students with learning disabilities. Two keywords were identified in the responses. Holistic learning strategies appears 58 times in 57 cases, or in 95% of the total cases. Technology integrated learning appears 11 times in 11 cases, or 18.3% of the total cases. Finally, the teachers were asked about the changes they would suggest to better include students with learning disabilities in the learning process. Four keywords were identified in the responses received. For instance, identify limitations of SLDs appears 8 times in 11 times in 11 cases, or in 18.3% of the total cases. Proper training of teachers needed appears 18 times in 17 cases, or 28.3% of the total cases. Curriculum changes needed appears 46 times in 40 cases, or 66% of the total cases. Integration of technology appears 19 times in 19 cases, or in 31.7% of the total cases. So this is the thematic analysis and the call frequency as generated by QDA minor light version 2.0.9. So we can see that four codes were in teaching methods in English, three codes were in teaching SLDs, three codes were in challenges in teaching SLDs, two were in experiential learning strategies in English, and four were in proposed rectifications. So limitations of the study. This study specifically focuses on the experiential teaching methods employed by the English language teachers teaching in the states of Uttar Pradesh and Kerala. It only focuses on these two major states. The survey for the study was conducted online using Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Forms. Thus, the study does not take into account the factors that would have been present during physical interactions. The survey was conducted only in CBSE schools. Thus, the study limits itself to the experiential methods of teaching used in CBSE schools and does not consider the methods and strategies that may be used in other education boards. The qualitative analysis of the data result also does not take into account the demographic details of the respondents, though the results and findings of the survey are consistent with the aims of the study. Finally, this study focuses solely on the English language teaching and learning methods. It does not consider the experiential methods and strategies that may be employed in teaching other subjects and languages. So moving on to the conclusion. To ensure students with specific learning disorders have access to jobs, education, and even certain daily activities, they should be supported in acquiring effective language skills. But unlike students with an average IQ and intellectual ability, traditional modes of teaching can be insufficient for such students. New approaches are therefore needed that consider the barriers that traditional methods of instruction present to such students and how they could be overcome. English language teachers now advocate an experiential learning strategy that focuses on the holistic development of students rather than just their academic performance. In experiential learning and teaching, students are directly involved in an activity. They discuss the activity and build awareness, and in the process, incorporate what they have learned in their day-to-day life. This is a quote which is taken from Luckner and Nadler, 1997, as cited in Klein, 2009. Experiential learning strategies like art integrated learning, sport integrated learning, and task-based language teaching methods help English language teachers create an atmosphere where students are encouraged to take risks and develop their language skills and knowledge. But for students with specific learning disabilities, any implementation of experiential learning methods must involve teachers making a conscious effort to understand the limitations faced by students with learning disorders. Using these methods does not fully solve the issues faced by students with SLDs. Still, they ensure that they will have a satisfying and successful learning experience, thus increasing the likelihood of developing the needed skills. Thank you.
Okay, that was great, Amal. Thank you very much for sharing the information about that study.
Thank you.
I just had a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
On that. And if anybody else has any questions, please do pop them into the Q&A box. I can see that some of those are coming through at the moment, which is great. But just a couple of questions from me then. So you mentioned a lot about technology and how you can, bring technology. You can use technology in, activities. So I just thought I'd just double check. So how can new technology materials help in effective language acquisition for those students that do have specific learning disabilities?
So thank you for the question. So experiential learning strategies can benefit a lot from the new technology that is present, that is being developed right now. For instance, augmented reality methods and virtual reality methods can help such students to interact with the environment that is around them and learn by interacting. So it helps them to understand how the world works, it increases a situational awareness in those students. And so using VR and AR methods, they will be able to understand how language works, how they can interact with the world, how they can interact with others, and that can also help them in reducing their anxiety when they come in contact with the others. So these methods and strategies can be helpful in reducing anxiety that can be seen in traditional classroom environment. So it also helps us students learn by themselves, learn by doing. So it also moves from that teacher-centered learning to become more learner-centered. So that will be a beneficial thing for such students. Yes.
Okay. So some of the questions in the Q&A box
Yeah.
are more about, can you, from your research and just from your knowledge, can you suggest some activities that can be done
yes. So what can be done is, these experiential methods can have a different by using these technology, like new methods are being developed, new video games are being developed. All these can be very beneficial when for example, the metaverse is a great example in which students can interact with others, though it's not a real interaction. It does help them to understand how interactions work in the society, how language works, how conversation works. So that helps them in learning how to converse with others, how to develop these language skills. So in that way, these methods can be very helpful in developing the language skills of such students.
Okay. And just out of interest, can I just ask why you selected the 3 specific models of language?
Yes. So this is a bit interesting because as I said earlier, the DRC model is a cascading model, or it's a vertical model. At the same time, the easy reader model is a parallel model. So I wanted to show how different types of models are being used. So the ERC model is a parallel model, it's a vertical model. Easy reader model is a parallel model, and trace model is a combination of both these. So it's a combination of both the parallel and the vertical models. So that is the reason why I took these three major language models.
Okay. Great.
And I also wanted to show the difference between these three.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So another question that came in for the Q&A box was, there are specific textbooks that, can cater for specific needs. So, for example, dyslexia. And the question was more, and I guess, again, this is just from your experience,
Yes.
it was whether the job of the teacher is to teach in a way that's suitable for the student, or is it about blending, these specific materials together as well?
See, textbooks and textual learning will not be very beneficial when you deal with students with dyslexia. So it's time to identify newer methods. So ESL or ESL teachers must identify new materials, new methods that will help in developing these language skills. As I said earlier, there are many technological materials that are available right now. Use those methods and use those materials, and then make learning an enjoyable experience where they can understand all those things. They can interact with their friends, do role plays. So textual, for me, I don't think textual learning is a good uh, can be very beneficial when you consider students with dyslexia or almost any other uh, learning disabilities, because it's not interesting. It's if you try to make learning interesting, only then can it be beneficial to such students. So my suggestion is identify newer methods. Let them talk to each other. Like let them do role plays, discussions, all interact with art. Learn by doing. Learn by playing in a game, playing in a sport. Task-based language learning methods. All these can be very beneficial when you deal with students with various specific learning disabilities, including dyslexia and all those things, because textbooks are not dyslexia friendly. Otherwise, you could if you are just focusing on textbooks for them, there's actually a font that is specifically which specifically caters to such students. But I don't think it will be very interesting. So ESL, it's the need of the hour to make classes and classrooms interesting, conversational, student centered more than teacher centered. Uh, Peer learning should be encouraged. All these things. So that is try to identify newer methods in order to teach such students.
Perfect. And can I ask, is there any discernible change with the implementation of the new experiential methods in CBSE?
Yeah, see, there are, so it was this experiential learning methods were planned to be implemented in schools during the 2020-2021 academic years, but because of COVID-19, it was not possible. So it's being implemented gradually. It's being implemented in schools since the schools have opened here, and there have been very discernible changes that have been seen. For instance, the teaching methods have changed. There is now a focus on integrating technology in classrooms, uh, and uh, uh, and the importance of examinations is also being reduced so as to focus on a more holistic development of these students. Um, um, so just focusing on their academic performance is not a focus right now. Rather, to develop skills that are needed in the 21st century, how to live in the 21st century. That is the focus of the teachers and students and the boards in India right now. So, there are new courses are being developed, new teaching methods are being developed. So these are the discernible changes that are being seen in CBSE schools right now.
Okay. Great. Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it there then, Amal. Thank you very much for today.
So yeah. So if anyone has any other questions, please you can contact me at amal_t@hs.iitr.ac.in.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you very much for that, Amal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So we'll shortly be going into another break, and then you'll be able to choose your next breakout session from the program. Okay. All right. We'll leave it there then, Amal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you very much.